So this is like I want to say the third psychology video here is kind of playing right off of the last one. We were talking about goal setting, all of that. So kind of like how can we make it easier or harder to reach these goals? And with that question, big thing that comes into play is advice and just like talking about your goals, kind of all of that. So, we have advice, who you should take it from, who you shouldn't take it from, and all of that. Goals, how to protect them, who you should tell, who you shouldn't tell, the effect that talking about your goals has on your dopamine and your brain. This concept of just do it, don't say anything, let others see it when you're successful. So, the effect like my trading personally has had on my relationships with others, that's kind of another one. And the effect that others' advice has had on my trading. So, first off, here, my recommendation to you, in the way I personally take advice, is you want to take advice from people that have something you want. So, say they've been in a happy relationship for like 10 years, they're happily married, maybe they have their own little family, whatever. You get the picture. You're probably going to want to listen to them if they have relationship advice for you. On the other end, are you going to want to take day trading or investment advice from this person? No. You want to talk to someone who is a professional in their field. You'd want to watch someone or message someone who's proven to be successful in trading. Guys like TJR, ICT, even me. So this kind of segues right into our next point, which is who to talk to about your goals and who not to talk to. So, in the same sense that you're talking about your relationship, should you talk to someone who is cheating on their significant other, they're being cheated on, horrible relationship, all that? No, you shouldn't. Let's use common sense here. So, in the same sense, never, just never talk to anyone about trading if they're not supportive of it or not supportive in general. All this is going to do is change the way you view yourself in trading, and it's going to make that in a negative spotlight. So, I'm a firm believer of this idea that you don't discuss your goals, you keep them to yourself, and you just work towards them. Why do I do this? So, it is literally scientifically backed that when you discuss your goals and you're like talking, if you're saying stuff like, I'm going to be a millionaire, or I'm going to have this car, I'm going to have this house, I'm going to have this freedom, you are getting it's scary how similar the amounts of it are. You are getting insanely similar amounts of dopamine being released in your brain just thinking about these goals, picturing yourself in this car, doing this, doing that, and telling others about this. It is scary how similar the amount of dopamine is being released. Why do we do stuff? Why does our brain want us to do things? Because those things release happy hormones, like dopamine, or happy chemicals, I guess. Dopamine, serotonin, the same shit that comes out of drugs, this and that. That's why people get addicted to drugs. Everyone knows this. So, if you're releasing more dopamine into your brain by discussing these goals, what reason does your brain have to want these goals? If you're already getting the dopamine off of it, which is what your brain actively seeks out, why? What reason you might want these goals, but what reason does your brain have to want these goals? It's not gonna. And then furthermore, if you're discussing these goals to people, people are inherently jealous. It's just a thing. So if they don't have these goals, if that's why you talk to people that already have this stuff, because A, they know what they're talking about, and then B, they're not going to knock you for wanting it because they're not going to be jealous of you. If you talk to someone, like say you want to be rich and you're talking to someone who's broke, never been rich in their life, they're going to be like, huh, especially if they're older than you, they're going to be like, huh, that's a nice idea. That's a really optimistic point of looking, but that's not realistic. This and that. Shut up, dude. Like, this is my teachers and people like that don't know that I'm already making money off of my business and successful. They're like, Oh, that's a good goal. That's a good idea, but do you think it'll actually happen? No, it already has happened, jackass. No, like I'm telling you, I've already done it. I'm not telling you I'm gonna do it. That's another point. Kind of sounds egotistical, but it's nice to just let them see your success and not discuss it beforehand. Because then when they're like, "Oh, that's unrealistic," you can be like, "No, it is realistic. I already did it." So, anyways, that's kind of egotistical, like I said, but then to the point, Odo Beckham Jr., guys like that, they might be a dickhead, but they're rich. You're not. It's not a personal dig at any of you. It's just the fact of the matter. So, whatever. Um, you're just gonna not discuss them. You're gonna be quiet and you're gonna work towards them because you're gonna have motivation for them because you want the success. You don't want others to think you're successful. It's a big thing. So, oh shit. Like, and that kind of does stem into humility, which we'll do another video on that at some point, but not right now. So, this is kind of my own personal experiences with trading. And I'll be honest, I kind of violated this rule. And right now, we'll get in a little side tangent quick. If you're, oh, this sounds so egotistical, but if you kind of have a strong mind and you're pretty smart, you have a little more leeway of doing this and like talking about your goals than if you're like pretty dumb. Because if you're like just quickly like kind of a preview overview, if you're smart, then even if you discuss your goals, you can kind of get your way out of it. And we'll kind of go more in depth in that. But basically, when I first started, I was like insanely audible about it. I told way too many people about my goals. I told my mom, I told my dad, I told my best friend, I told my grandparents, just way too many. And doing stuff like this, it can really make or break your mental, to be honest. Luckily for me, like I said before, I was able to handle it. So, like, for example, my dad was supportive. He's always been supportive. Love that guy. When I was starting my business, he was supportive of that. When I first started trading before I was proven to be profitable, he was like, shit, if you can do this shit, and you're saying it could be as good as it is, then go for it. You're a smart kid. You're good at this shit, and just love that guy. He trusts me to fix my own shit. Not that I start any of my own problems for the most part, this and that, but really good parenting. Um, Now that does combine with the fact that I have these goals, I have this work ethic, so he can trust me, obviously, to not do stupid shit because almost almost every single thing I do is in pursuit of my goals. Like even when I'm like jacking off, like not jacking off literally, jacking off like having fun, doing shit like that. That's to give myself a break so that I can pursue my goals without feeling like drained over it. But yeah, and that's kind of into the discipline work ethic. You should have some time off because if you have time off, it'll motivate you to get your goals. So obviously, he was very supportive. That was great. Now, my grandparents, they were kind of indifferent about it. Weren't really one way, weren't really the other way. My grandma was kind of more like, dude, like, whatever, if this is so hard, blah, 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 whatever, whole thing. My grandpa, he was trying to help. He was telling me all these different strategies, kind of trying to push me in that direction. But the problem with that is telling me strategies that work for futures. What do I trade? Forex. So it doesn't really help us. So that kind of brings us to another point, and this is really what saved my ass from being so audible about this is the fact that I was smart enough to kind of let something go in one ear. My dad actually taught me this saying, let something go in one ear and out the other. So if it's just going to confuse you, like these strategies, especially when I was just starting out, they were just going to confuse me. So I just completely ignored them. Um, does that sound rude? Yeah. But unfortunately, if you're prioritizing your goals, you're going to have to come off as rude sometimes. If you're successful, which my grandparents are very successful. Don't get this wrong. Don't ever think I like came out of the mud or came out of the ghetto. Like I grew up in a very good position. You know, I had two working class parents. I had those two parents in my life. They were avidly placing this work ethic into me, and they were avidly like making me understand that you have to work if you want success. So don't ever think I came from the projects or some crazy shit. Like, yes, I'm doing good, and compared to where I started, I am in a better position and I'm making a significant amount of money and doing really good, not to sound egotistical, but I did have a good starting point, I'm not gonna lie. Like I had a car provided to me from my dad, actually two. Like I had all this shit, but I used it. Like that the my dad gave me an SUV, and the return on that investment, the ROI, me using that vehicle to commute between my business jobs, advertise all of this, that ROI, I've used that vehicle to make a lot more money than it costs. So that's a kind of a tangent, kind of like a random ass rant or like ramble, but just because like people like Barron Trump, this or that, just because they have a good starting point, they're still fucking like they're still doing super good, and their return on investments are good, all of that. But yeah, not from the projects, none of that shit, not from the mud. You see my fucking room, you see my TV, you see this shit. But I am at a point where this stuff was provided to me, but now that I'm successful, I am providing it to myself. Like I'm spending money on myself, spending money on my own things. You know, if I go out to eat with people, I'm paying for their shit, I'm paying for my shit. Um, I'm able to kind of walk into a store, buy whatever I want. If I want food from some shit, I can do that. I can do all this shit because of the money, you know, all of that, connections. But yeah, so I mean, this is kind of getting off topic from the actual video, but I feel it's important that y'all understand this shit. You like, I want to put this. You can always be rich. It's just a question of how much work you're going to have to put in to reach that goal. And obviously, someone from a trailer park, still very possible. It's very attainable, that wealthy status, that rich status. But it's just going to cost more work. You know, for Barron Trump to make $1 million, it's probably one of the easiest positions to be in compared to, I don't know, some kid like me. That's probably like the next significant ladder. And then some ghetto kid, that's probably the hardest one. I don't use that as a derogatory term. It's just based off of, you know, where they're starting in life. I said derogatory term really weird, but it's just based off of a starting point in success. Three major branches, probably. I would say risk, work, and starting out, you know, connections, all of that. You know, if you're starting out wealthy, you're starting out with good connections, it's going to be easier. And then the more risk you take, the less work you're going to have to put in, if that risk pays off. Starting a business, I would never really view that as actual risk, because if you just work hard, kind of back to that goal setting video, if you work hard, you'll reach your goals. So there's no inherent risk in starting a business because all you have to do is work hard. And then around my area, it's not like the wealthiest place ever, but you can easily make 50 to 100 bucks an hour just based off of starting your own business. Then trading, I would still say there's no risk involved in this because, like, it's a real thing. People are making real money off of it. So if you're just dedicating yourself to it, and we'll kind of get into this in the next video even more, because I plan on doing like a day in the life, what you should do, what you shouldn't be doing. But yeah, I mean, if you just apply yourself, there's no risk involved. Like technically you're risking your money to start up, but like you're applying yourself and you're gonna make it. So it's really just an investment, no risk ever in life. Um, then if you're doing illegal shit, wouldn't recommend that ever. If you're doing illegal shit, obviously you have a fuck ton of risk, but you can make a fuck ton of money. I wouldn't recommend that. I would either I would recommend high income skill or starting a business if you want to get rich. But let's end that tangent here. So You know, back to that other example. Why would I learn these futures strategies if it doesn't apply to my trading? And it's just counterintuitive, to be honest. But like I said, might sound rude, but you're going to have to do that. So the next point is my mom's reaction. This is where it could have really made or break. So this was realistically in the height when I like told her about this, which I realistically shouldn't have. I should have just done it. There was no reason to fill her in because my dad already knew. Um, and that's really the only person I should have told about this, if telling anyone at all, would have been my dad, because I live with him. He's like I want him to know what I'm doing. He's supportive. I know he's gonna support it. So that's realistically the only person, and I would honestly recommend it would be better me only telling him than me telling no one, because that's someone who's gonna give me endless support and all of that, like I said previously. So let's stop fucking dilly-dallying. Let's get right to my mom's reaction. So, like I said, height of my business, I'm making baller, not compared to trading, but compared to everyone else my age. And to be honest with you, just the average US citizen, I'm making baller bucks. I'm making, like, do I want to disclose this? Not really. I'm making a good amount of money. We'll put it that way. To a point where after if I worked this business for a year, I could get a sports car. But I'm also going to be putting in a ton of time, a ton of effort. But I could get a sports car, do all this, do all that. So, I had that going for me. My mom already saw every time we were going out to eat, I was like able to fucking pay for her and me to eat, which I always will do that because obviously, like I said, no, we're just going to skip that tangent. We'll go into that next video. But, she's seeing that early on in my business. I didn't know how to fucking, it's going to sound so embarrassing, but I didn't know how to deposit a check. I didn't know how the banks worked. I didn't even know I had a bank account, this and that. So I had to get her. This might have been before I even had my license, to be honest. Jeez. But I had to get her to come with me to deposit one of my first checks, which it was a pretty good amount. It was a pretty big project. It was some leaf removal, but I was really good at it, and it was after I bought my leaf blower, this and that. So it was a sizable amount from this woman. Her name was Josie. Oh, I love Josie. She was a really good person. Really happy to have worked with her. But, she sees this, whatever, she's like, literally jaw drops, whatever. She's impressed, this and that. So she sees the success that I'm getting from this business in how good of a position I was already in. So she's kind of thinking, she's like, why the fuck would you take time off from the business and risk it on something like this? I'll be honest, the returns from trading are about the best returns you can fucking get. But, she's like that. I'm going to be completely honest, not really supportive at all. She's like kind of trying to just convince me in most opportunities that presented themselves to not go with trading. And she's trying to convince me to fucking just stick with this business idea. Fucking her, my stepdad, they're both like that. Generally just like, I hate to say this, but it's loser mindset. It's like, why would you tell someone that's unsupportive, working this dead-end job, this and that? Why would you tell them about your goals to have better things in life? Stupid move by me. I didn't face any repercussions from it because I was smart enough to once again go back to that concept, in one ear, out the other. But yeah, just do not tell unsupportive people about your fucking goals. Because that could have, if I would have actually listened, even my grandparents, if I would have avidly listened to my fucking mom, my own mom telling me that shit, if I would have listened to that shit, I would have the business, sure, but I wouldn't have any of this fucking knowledge. I wouldn't be able to make a fucking go into shitty market conditions and make a fucking band like that, and then fucking do that in school and then go home, fucking drive home in a nice car, this and that, fucking go eat whatever the fuck I want, DoorDash a fucking steak while I'm back testing this or that, like, and that's just the point of it. And that's the main point of this right here. I'm not gonna go into any crazy tangents, but main point, and this is something serious. I hope you watched this video. If you didn't watch this video and you fucking are only for the strategy shit, then I'm gonna be honest, you're likely not gonna be a successful trader because A, you need to have the work ethic to be able to sit through a 20-minute video like this, because you're gonna have to be on the charts for a lot fucking longer than that. But the second part is you need to have a good psychology, dude. So we're gonna end this right here with this clear message. Nothing broad, no gray areas. When you're starting trading, or any other big risk for that matter, or something society sees as a big risk, don't tell anyone unless you know they're going to be supportive of it. And if you're going to tell anyone who might not be supportive of it, or if you tell someone and they have an unsupportive reaction, they're telling you be realistic, shit like this, have the fucking balls, have the cojones, and have the mental fortitude to let that shit go right in one ear and out the fucking other. Don't even consider their fucking opinion. And then a smaller point, if someone is saying some shit that's gonna confuse you, or if you're watching a video and all it does is confuse you, click off that bitch, let it go in one ear and out the other. Do not fucking do that, because this is already confusing as shit. I'll be honest. I'm a smart person. This even took me a few months to learn. So don't fucking overcomplicate it for yourself. That's it. Have a good one.